Hi everyone. So today is New Year's Day 2023 and I decided what better way to start off the new year than with a full houseplant tour. And I want to do this because I want to be able to come back next year on this day and be able to do a full then versus now comparison of what all of my plants look like right now versus what they're going to look like exactly 1 year from today. So be forewarned, this is definitely going to be quite a bit longer video than I normally do, but it'll be worth it, I promise. And I did finally get my replacement Christmas present, which is a gimbal, which is going to help steady my camera a little bit better against my essential trimmers that I have, but there is a slight learning curve to that gimbal, so just bear with me a bit. I think I've been practicing, I think everything's going to go okay, but we'll see. But we've got a lot of plants to cover, so let's just jump right into it and let's just start with the plants behind me. All right, you guys, I think we'll start over here with the Monstera deliciosa, which I don't know if you guys can tell, but we are almost dragging the ground now. And so we are going to probably need to stake this plant up sometime in the near future. So stay tuned for a plant chores video in which we do that. But coming up this way, we have the Tenanthe setosa over here. And this plant I have officially had for 1 year now, and we are looking absolutely beautiful. Absolutely love this plant. We've gotten way fuller in the year that I have had this plant. Now we have gotten a few crispy leaf tips. I have just kind of removed them for the most part, but I think it happened well, it definitely happened while I was out of town, but I think it was because we had those super low temperatures and the humidity was super low as well. That is my best guess. Either that or like I went too long between watering it while I was out of town, perhaps. And then up here, we have the beautiful Baltic Blue Pothos, aka Epipremnum pinnatum Baltic Blue. And I have not trimmed this, you guys. If you'll remember, there was the one long vine. It's still there. It's just tucked up because it was dragging into the Monstera. And like I said, it shows when I film when I'm sitting here, it like is a random weird vine hanging in the background. So I just tucked it up in there. And if you did watch my video where I came back from my holiday at my parents' house, we do know that this plant has a bunch of roots coming through the drainage hole. So in that same plant chores video, when we address the Monstera, I will probably also slip this out of its pot and see if it needs to be repotted, and if it does, we will repot it. But definitely has gotten way more full and lush in the time that I have owned it. Absolutely love this plant. Gonna love it even more when it covers up this cover pot here. This is just kind of cheap plastic cover pot because I didn't want something heavy hanging on the wall. And just a reminder that this is not the plant that is intended to be here. It is kind of a placeholder for the time being. But let's go ahead and move on to over by the couch. And Toby has joined us over here now. I think he wants to take a shower, you guys. I've probably never mentioned this before, but that little guy right there is obsessed. Shower obsessed, water obsessed. He's crazy. Like, I don't think he realizes that he is a cat. Do you, Toby? But moving on to our beautiful Raven ZZ plant over here. This plant has gotten considerably larger in the amount of time that I have owned it, and I don't even think I've had it, maybe I've had it for about 6 months now, but I did notice when I came home the other day from being out of town that we do have a new growth point. Do you guys see that right there? Like, look at that beautiful new growth point. And there is another one coming in even further back somewhere. Let me see if we can get up in there. You guys see that one right there? That's another new growth point, just a little baby one that's come in, but I'm really excited about this bigger one. This looks like this is going to be a much bigger branch than that little one you just saw, but I'm trying to figure out getting in close to you guys without the gimbal freaking out on me. I think I'm doing pretty good so far. I don't know. But yeah, that is going to be a big, beautiful new branch. I think that is going to be the 4th new branch that this plant has gotten in the time that I have owned it. So I am definitely super excited about that. But moving on to the shelves on the wall over here, and let's start with this top shelf up here with the beautiful philodendron micans, which as you can see has already gotten considerably longer even since the last time we propagated it. She just is constantly growing. And then next to her up here, we have the beautiful Aglaonema that I don't know exactly what kind it is. I think it's a pink Dalmatian or a Wishes based on some of the comments that you guys have made, but I don't know for sure, and that's just my best guess. But we are starting to outgrow that shelf. So we are probably going to have to get relocated sometime soon. Now let's move on over here real quick to the little frost peperomia. This guy has been doing pretty well over here. I do swap this plant with the plant we're going to get to over here in a second periodically, just so that neither of them is too far from the window, because just a reminder, the window is way over there. This is the furthest shelf from the window, and I just want to make sure that nobody's getting too low of sunlight for too long, if that makes sense. But we're definitely looking absolutely beautiful. If I get up in here close, we do have one kind of, oh look, I said that and then we lost a leaf, but that's just an old leaf that was coming off. But you can see everything else in here looks beautiful. This plant has gotten considerably larger in the time that I have had it. However, my Shumi Red Peperomia, which we will be looking at when we go upstairs, definitely has grown probably the most out of all of my peperomias in the time that I have had them. But absolutely love that plant. But moving on to our next shelf over here. So this is where the little Selaginella is. And if you don't recall, or you weren't here when Toby was in the hospital, a lot of my plants got neglected, and this one was the worst off out of all of them. And honestly, I knew it would take a long time for the Selaginella to bounce back, but it really isn't bouncing back, and it's kind of annoying me. So from this angle, it might not look too bad, but this is what's happening, you guys. It is still just not happy. I don't know. Hopefully it will make a full recovery eventually, but we'll just have to see what happens. In the meantime, I just keep the one part that looks somewhat full and nice facing out this way, because I mean, what else am I supposed to do? But definitely really hoping, fingers crossed, that it will come back to full lush life, and hopefully maybe by the time we do the next full house plant tour at the end of this year, we will be looking big and beautiful again. But moving on to our next shelves, and I think we will, well, let's just do the Haworthia since we're here first. So this is my Haworthia, aka also sometimes referred to as a zebra plant. And we have definitely grown considerably. I am starting to get concerned that we're getting slightly stretched out. I don't know if you can tell. You know what, looking at it on camera, it's not that obvious, so maybe I'm just being ridiculous, but I felt like we were starting to get stretched out, and so I was thinking I might need to start rotating this plant with one of the ones behind the couch that's directly in the window so that we don't get super leggy, but maybe we're okay for now. But definitely love this plant. So easy to take care of. I water it like once a month. I just wait until it starts to feel a little bit squishy, like if the stems or the leaves here can bend more, that's when I water it. But definitely a fun little succulent plant. If we move on up to the next shelf, let me back up a little bit here. Sorry, you guys, I'm having to kind of climb on and off of the couch here to get to everybody. But if you see up here, we've got the Tenanthe Burl-Marxii, and this plant is kind of annoying me just a little bit because it honestly has not grown much for me at all. It definitely gets plenty of light where it is on this top shelf because it is really close to the window, but not too close to where it's going to get like burn or anything from direct light. But it just, compared to like my Tenanthe luberciana in my bedroom, this plant has grown ridiculously slow. So if anybody else has owned this and had the same experience and somehow figured out how to get it to grow faster, comment down below and let me know. But still a beautiful plant. I absolutely love it. I love that it's got the purple backsides to the leaves. Definitely a gorgeous, gorgeous plant. I just really wish it would grow faster for me. Of course, if it did though, it's not going to be able to stay on the shelf. So maybe I just need to shut my mouth and, you know, be happy about the fact that it's not growing fast so I don't have to relocate it. But next to that, we have the Scindapsus argyrius, Argyria or Argyrius. Why can't I remember this? I think it's Scindapsus argyrius, and then the peperomia, watermelon peperomia, is Argyria. I always mix the two up because they sound so similar. So I'm pretty sure this is the Argyrius. If I'm wrong, I'll flash it on screen. But definitely love this plant. Definitely happy that we are now like starting to vine. We're filling in more because when I bought this plant, it was a bunch of not fully rooted cuttings and I didn't know that. And I had to do kind of an emergency like repot situation on it but if I can get up here, you guys can see like how full it is. And I haven't really like propagated back into it at all. I have draped and pinned a vine or two over onto itself, like to help fill it in some. But other than that, this is just the original cuttings that I basically down potted, put in a smaller pot together. But we are definitely, like I said, getting longer and starting to trail and looking a lot better. So I'm super happy about that for this plant. But moving on to the last shelf up here. And this shelf has two of my Hoyas on it, my Hoya curtisii and my Hoya linearis. And my Hoya linearis, you guys, I mean, just look at that. We definitely are going to need to propagate this one soon. And when I propagate this one, I am going to plant back into the top to fill it in more and make it more full and lush. Once again, I think I've got so many plant chores to do right now. I think the next video I'm going to film for you guys is probably just going to be a lot of plant chores, including that. But definitely, I love this plant. It has definitely grown a lot in the time that I have had it. I think I got this one in January, so next month I'll have had it for a year. And then same thing with the curtisii. I got these around the same time. I got all my Hoyas around the same time except for my variegated compacta, but I was never into Hoyas. And then like these two are the ones that got me into Hoyas. And so then I started buying more Hoyas. So pretty much all but one of my Hoyas were bought in January of 2022. But the curtisii also is starting to get a lot more growth on it, looking absolutely gorgeous here. Absolutely love it. Super easy to care for plants, and they absolutely love being right next to this southern facing window. They do get direct light part of the day this time of year, but as you can tell, we have just been like nonstop growing, and I am just super proud of them. I'm a proud plant mom. Y'all are doing great. But let's move on to behind the couch, and hopefully the lighting will cooperate for us. Let me reset, and then we'll make sure the lighting is working. Okay, you guys, hopefully the lighting is okay for you here. So we do have my Ficus elastica Ruby over here doing absolutely wonderful. Now, those of you who watched my notching video, you know that I did try to notch Ruby in that video. Ruby was still really young. Like, I think Ruby was probably only about like this tall compared to how she is now. And so that was relatively young. I knew there was a good chance that the notching wasn't going to work on her. And because she was so young, I didn't want to like overly notch her. So I think I only notched her in one spot. And I told you guys in that video, there's like, it's about a 60% success rate. And then she also got spider mites like right after that. And I need to stop pointing where it's going to unfocus. Sorry about that, you guys. But anyway, she got spider mites like right after that. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised that she didn't branch, but she is definitely looking gorgeous. And I probably will try to notch her again in the springtime because she's going to be close to the size that my Teneke was when I notched that one, and that has worked. I'm waiting for the branch to get bigger. I've told you guys, because right now I tried to film it the other day and you can't tell that it's a branch yet. It's annoying me. It's annoying me. My apologies that you haven't gotten the video. A lot of you have commented that you've done the notching technique based on my video and it has worked. I really wish that all of you could post pictures of your success on YouTube here for people in the comments, but it's coming, you guys. I promise it's coming. But right now, I'm just really super happy that Ruby is doing so well. And Ruby and my Ficus elastica Teneke did both get spider mites recently in the spider mite debacle. And yeah, you just don't even get me started, you guys. I'm so over spider mites. But moving on to our beautiful little Cebu Blue Pothos here that is really taking off. I am absolutely loving that this plant is finally starting to pick up in its growth rate. It has loved being in this southern facing window. And just a reminder that I did have my windows replaced a couple years ago, you guys. So the amount of harsh light that is coming through here is being better filtered through these new windows than like the original windows that were here. And that's why a lot of these plants I think are doing okay. I have a feeling this guy would have gotten some burn, especially during this time of year when we're getting a lot of direct light coming in this window, if it was still the builder grade original windows. But we are doing fabulous, as you can tell right now here. We're definitely starting to trail, so I'm going to have to either relocate this plant or elevate it here soon because we're just kind of like, as you can see, just trailing our way all over the place, but at least we're happy. At least we're growing. Absolutely love it. I'm gonna have to reset for a second, you guys, to show you my Ficus elastica Teneke. Okay, you guys, so Tink, as I like to call my Ficus elastica Teneke for short, is doing fabulous despite also having spider mites recently again. Now, while I'm not going to show you the branch from notching yet, because once again, it is tiny and I don't know what the deal is, honestly, you guys. It was really picking up in growth and then it quit. Like growing as fast, it didn't quit growing, it just quit growing as fast. But I also have a hunch that part of the reason it quit growing is because I accidentally snapped off the growth point. So here's the new growth point right now that's coming in. A while back, I accidentally snapped the newest one that was coming in off while I was watering it. And as I mentioned in my notching video, that is a way to make a ficus branch, is to snap the new growth point off. And so when I accidentally snapped that growth point off a while back, wouldn't you know it, look what happened. Do you see that, you guys? Do you see that right there? If I can get my finger around this leaf, this is a new branch right here. This is a new branch coming off from where I snapped off. I don't know if you can see right there. That is where I accidentally snapped off the growth point a little while back, and then a branch shot out from here. And when that branch started shooting out from there, the other branch that had started lower down where I had notched it, that's when I feel like the one by the notching spot started to slow down in growth, because I feel like it was just putting all its energy into growing this one out. So that is where the new growth point is coming out now. Now I am very happy that that branch is going relatively straight up, because otherwise I would have like some awkward growth really high up this plant. And you guys can't see it, but it's basically, it's about a foot taller right now than Ruby, sorry. So there's Ruby down there. This kind of gives you an idea of the height difference between the two. So this plant has gotten significantly larger. So the good news is, at least you know if you want to snap a growth point off, that you will definitely get a new branch. Come on, camera, let's focus. But yeah, definitely you can get a new branch that way. Now, I would not do that unless the plant was really young. So let's get back over here to Ruby again. Sorry, went the wrong direction there. So once again, I would not really do that, you guys, unless the plant was like, I don't know, maybe this tall, because you're risking getting a branch way up here that's gonna jet out to the side and it's gonna make it look uneven and top heavy. But that's just my 2 cents. But let's go ahead and move on to our next window over here. And we do have our Syndapsis pictus exotica up here, looking absolutely gorgeous. Let me come at her from this side so that hopefully the lighting will be a little bit better. I waited till late in the day, you guys, because I thought it would be easier for you guys to see, because there wouldn't be direct sun coming in, because the sun's already gone down by the side of the house. But honestly, it's just hard to film in these windows. But we are definitely looking beautiful. Has been loving living in this window for sure. And so we have been trailing a lot. I have had to propagate this plant several times over the summer, and we're already getting to the point that we're about to grow down into the Hoya Weyerii again. So I am probably going to have to propagate this one again relatively soon. But let's take a look at the Hoyas down here and the Alocasia Tiny Dancer. So once again, Hoya Weyerii over here has been growing phenomenally for me. Absolutely loving this plant. And just like the Cebu Blue, we are getting to the point where pretty soon here I'm probably going to have to either elevate this or find some other place to put it where it can actually trail. Now, what I'm super excited about is when I got home from vacation, kind of like I saw new growth on the Raven ZZ, I also saw this new growth coming in on my Hoya Carnosa compacta, and this is just my little green one that was just a little itty bitty baby when I got it. I've had this one a little, no, let me think. I guess it'll be a year in January on this one as well, but definitely has been the slowest one to grow for me. So I was super excited when I saw that new growth point coming in. So hopefully that means we're really about to take off and we're going to get way bigger over the course of this year. But moving on to the Tiny Dancer over here, we do have two of our oldest leaves are being a little bit droopy right now. I'm guessing we're getting ready to drop those. But that's okay, because look at all these other beautiful leaves we have up here, including this one, which is the newest one that has come in. Let me try and come at this from this side so maybe the lighting will be a little bit better. I think that's okay. But absolutely loving this plant. We definitely have taken off this year. I definitely think getting this plant into the southern facing windows is what really helped kick its growth off. It has had zero problem with any kind of leaf burn. I haven't had any leaves like bending down like this unless they're ones that were the oldest leaves that were getting ready to fall off. But as you can see, like all the new leaves, they're facing the window. They're super happy, super in love with this plant. Can't wait to see how much bigger it gets this year. But moving on to our last shelf over here, and probably just in time because I am worried that the lighting is going to get too low. Hold on, I got my phone is like in my way on the couch. Okay, here we go. So this guy, Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, as you guys know, we moved this plant upstairs in my recent video where we moved plants upstairs. However, I do not have a plant stand yet for this guy. I had borrowed one for that video from the Marble Queen Pothos, but she needed her stand back. And then I went out of town for the holidays. So I have not had a chance to look for a plant stand for this plant yet. That is why it is still back down here, but it is on my list to do tomorrow. So as soon as I find a plant stand that I like, I will be taking this one back upstairs, and I have no clue what I'm going to put in its place here. So maybe we'll figure that out together once I get that plant stand. And we do have that one leaf there, I'm sure you can see, that is kind of dried out. I think this plant, I misestimated when it needed to be watered when I was out of town, and it got drier than it probably should have before it was watered. But no big deal, like I can cut that off, it's not that big of a deal. But reminder that we put a bunch of vines in this pot, like a bunch of vines in this pot, and they are all taking off. So let's see if you can see here. It's hard to see some of those. There's like new growth coming in right there. Look how big that is off of there. That is going to be beautiful. And then if we come up here, you can see here we got another vine that is starting to try to attach to the pole, doing awesome. You can see how tall that one's gotten. That is the topmost leaf right here. And then this is the original super long propagated vine. And we can see just how long that one's gotten. New leaf coming out already up there. We are going to need a pole extension here relatively soon. I better add that to my list of things I need to buy. But I don't want to try to rotate it right now because it's going to be hard for me to do it with one hand. But back there, if you can see, we just have all the vines are starting to take off. 3 of them are starting to attach to the pole. The other ones still need to get a little bit taller before they will attach. But all in all, doing absolutely fabulous. I'm absolutely loving how this turned out. I'm really glad that we put that many vines in the pot. It's just going to be so full. It's going to be so lush, and I'm like super excited to see how it comes together. Now over here we have Pearl. Pearl is looking fabulous as well, and she is definitely getting incredibly longer. I'm either going to need to propagate her soon or perhaps move her to the shelves behind the couch. Maybe I'll swap her out for the Haworthia, because right now, like, I don't know, we need to be elevated so we can flow freely, but definitely doing fabulous. And then of course we have the Peperomia tetragona, no, let me try that again. Peperomia petiolata tetragona over here, which is still just pumping out a ton of new growth points here. Oh, and I noticed, hold on you guys, let me try and see if I can get it without the lighting being bad. Okay guys, I think you'll be able to see it here. So shortly after I got this plant and I repotted it because it was in horrible soil, I shoved 2 leaves that had snapped off of one of the vines down in here, and they've been sitting like that since June basically. But do you see that we have new growth coming in now finally right here? This is coming out of where this was shoved in, so it is coming from that root system. So I am super excited about that. That is definitely going to help to fill in this side of the pot, as will this one, which also was a propagation that I put in here. As soon as this one starts to actually push out new growth, we're really going to fill in on that side. But if you guys weren't able to tell, let me come back around here so you can see how long we are getting over here. And look at that one super long vine back there. That vine has finally started to trail. That is the one that last time I showed you this plant, it was sticking straight up out of the pot. It is now trailing, so I'm probably going to need to find somewhere else to put this plant, or once again, elevate it. But I'm absolutely loving this plant. I love how it looks. I love how it grows. It is fabulous. Okay, so the last plant we have to look at over here is my chain of hearts that was originally several different chains of hearts in smaller, like 4-inch pots that I combined together. And the lighting on this one obviously is not looking great. Let me adjust and see if I can get at it from a better angle. Okay, you guys, so I'm standing on the back of the couch. This is a very awkward position, but at least I think you can see the plant better. I mean, you saw how long it is. It's doing absolutely wonderful. Now, I will say I am the world's worst about staying on top of watering this plant when it needs to be watered. Like, I seem to always wait a little bit too long, and because of that, I end up with this situation, yellow leaves coming off of it. I did just water it 2 days ago, but I waited a little bit too long. I need to just check it more frequently. I think it's because I didn't originally have it in this window, and since I moved it to this window, it's just working through its water so much more quickly. And honestly, it doesn't look bad like down low or anything, but it is like a bit bald, if you can see, if I can get this angled correctly. Sorry, you guys, I'm on my tippy toes on the back of the couch, I'm doing my best. We are a little bit bald looking up here, but I can always just propagate some vines back up in there to fill it in. But it's really not that big of a deal because, I mean, you can't see it. Like, this is hung pretty high up in the window, so when you're standing on the ground, you can't see that part of the plant, so I'm not too concerned about it. But all in all, I am liking how this turned out. I'm glad I combined those two plants together. And yeah, I just really, really think it's looking lovely and can't wait to see how much more it grows this year. But let's go ahead and I think we'll move into the bedroom next. All right, you guys, we'll go ahead and start with my Tenanthe luberciana. This plant is also sometimes referred to as a bamburantu plant, which is why I nicknamed this plant Bambi. Here comes Toby again. Hi, Toby. Floofy butt. Cutie patootie floofy butt. But anyways, so this plant has just gotten enormous for me. I did show you guys in a recent video what it looked like when I first got it. I'll flash that up on screen again for you here. Definitely has grown way faster than my Tenanthe burl marksii. Once again, not certain why that is. This plant is way far back from windows. I mean, there's an east-facing window over here that it is highly far away from, and then behind me are the southern-facing windows. Let me turn around here. That is really far away as well. So, don't know why this one has done so much better than the burl marks, but you know, I don't care. It still looks fabulous. And what's even funnier is this is the one that always seems to have spider mites as well, yet we're growing like crazy. I don't get it. I don't get it, but I love it. But moving on to the plants over here by the east-facing window, and I'm kind of glad we're doing this later in the day because you can kind of see how the rattlesnake calathea is starting to move all of its leaves straight up. Right now, this time of year, I don't know what the deal is with the rattlesnake calatheas in my household, but those leaves will all go straight up. Even the ones that are over here, they're kind of still sticking down, they will all be super straight up. It is the most straight up I ever see them in any time of the year. I don't know why it's like that this time of year. Maybe because we just passed like the shortest day in the year or something. I don't know. But absolutely doing wonderful, and I am pretty certain we are going to need to repot this guy in the springtime. I'm just having to water him so frequently, and he's just gotten massive. So I can't wait to see how much bigger he gets during the next year. Now down here we have our Calathea macoiana, or aka peacock plant. And this plant has not grown a ton for me in the time I've had it, but we have started to get much bigger leaves now, and so I'm really super happy about that. And you guys know I love the backside of this plant. This is like my favorite calathea when it comes to what the backside of the leaves look like. Just absolutely beautiful. Absolutely love it. Now, Freddie, if you guys don't remember, Freddie had some weird thing going on his leaves when we did the calathea catch-up video a little while back. I think we've resolved it. I still am not sure what it was. There are still a few leaves that have damage from it. Let me see. See kind of that reddish brownish on there? That's what I'm talking about. But it hasn't spread, it hasn't gotten worse, and I did notice that he is finally putting out a new leaf. Where is it? Ah, there it is, right there. We're finally putting out a new leaf. So if you don't remember, Freddie flowered pretty much all spring and summer and put out 0 new leaves. And then when we stopped flowering is when we started having that leaf issue, so we still put out no new leaves. So super happy we are now putting out new leaves. So hopefully Freddie is fully recovered from all the things that were going on, and we are going to get a much bigger, fuller, more beautiful Freddie over the course of this year. I'm sorry if you guys can hear Toby whining in the background. He really, really wants me to turn the shower on for him, but we are not doing that right now. But moving on to Rose, and I call this plant Rose or Rosie because this is a Calathea rosa picta medallion, and absolutely love Rosie. Rosie has been getting a little bit of crispy leaf edges here ever since I moved her over here from the other, well, actually, no, it started when she was on the other nightstand. She was getting a little too much direct light in that window, and that's when we started to get the crisping. I've seen it kind of, it hasn't been getting worse since I moved her over here where she's getting the east light. So I think she's definitely happier over here. This has not been the most successful, like in terms of like a lot of new growth Calathea for me. I've really had a hard time finding a place that she's truly happy. But you know what? She does put out enough new leaves for every leaf she loses that she doesn't just look incredibly like bald or anything like that. I mean, she doesn't look that bad, right, guys? I think she looks okay. I definitely think she looks okay. But let's move on to the two plants in the windowsill back there, but my camera battery is about to die, you guys, so let me swap that out real quick. All right, you guys, we're back in business. So over here we have my Hawaiian snowbush. I will flash the two scientific names that it is known by up on screen for you, and I don't know why it has two. I will try to find that out for you at some point in time. But this plant has gotten way bigger in the time that I have owned it, and I think I got this one in February of last year, so not too far away from having owned it for a year, but it was only about like that tall when I originally got it. It has definitely taken off in the last few months. Like, I actually think it's taken off more in the fall and winter than it did the whole spring and summer. I'm not certain, 100% certain as to why, but absolutely love these super tiny little leaves, and they do get variegated. The more light it gets, you can see there's kind of some white speckly variegation on there. And then during the summer, when it gets a little sun stressed, it also looks a little bit pink on the new leaves, but absolutely love that plant. I did recently take it up to a 3-inch pot from a 2-inch pot. Obviously, it doesn't fit very well in that cover pot, but that was all I had. Like I said, I need to go like pot shopping, plant stand shop. I got things I got to buy, you guys, but absolutely loving that plant. Now let's move over here to the string of turtles. Toby, why are you so sad? I know, I'll run the shower for you in a bit. You need to chill. Okay, my string of turtles, I think this is another one where I kind of underestimated when it needed to be watered while I was out of town, and it got a little bit too dry, and that's why we've got some of these like yellowing leaves going on here. But once again, we're putting out a ton of new growth up here, and if this happens, you guys, this plant really kind of just fills itself back in. I mean, I don't know if you guys can see up here, but like we're definitely super full. I'm not worried about it. Like, it's fine. If it loses those leaves, it's not going to start to look bald. It's going to look a-okay. And you can see just how long this plant has gotten. Definitely one that we are going to need to propagate soon. I probably should have propagated this one before now, but I just haven't had a ton of time to do it, and I kind of just like how she looks when she gets all kinds of long and beautiful and everything. And yeah, I absolutely love her. She has gotten ginormous in the time that I have owned her, and I'm certain that she's going to get even bigger over the course of this next year. All right, you guys, I'm going to get us reset up over there. The lighting is a little bit funky, as you can probably see, so let me just make sure we can see everything to the best of our ability. All right, you guys, so over here on the dresser, we have the beautiful Calathea warskawesii, aka Gopertia warskawesii. And if you didn't see my recent post about this, if you see these leaves that just look incredibly taller than everything else, these are actually flowers. And I did not know that the way this plant flowers is by producing flowers that have 2 leaves attached to them. So at first I was like, why are we getting leggy? We get plenty of light where we are. And then I realized that these are actually flowers because you can see the start of the flower coming out in between the leaves. Harder to see on that one than up on this one. But I'm really excited to see what they're going to look like once they push out. And there are 4 of them. We've got that one we were just looking at here. We've got this one in the front here. And then there is this one all the way in the back over here as well. I don't know why this one only had 1 leaf though. That was interesting. But yeah, so definitely cool. I wasn't expecting that. It was a nice like New Year's surprise slash I guess Christmas surprise, but definitely beautiful, and I'm glad that it's not that the plant's getting leggy, that they're actually flowers. Now, I do have a concern that we are now going to do what Freddie did and just flower nonstop and not put out any new leaves, but hopefully that is not what happens. This plant has been consistently putting out new leaves the entire time that I have had it. I will flash up on screen for you guys how long I've had this one. I think I got this one sometime in the summer maybe, but I have had pretty good experience with it for being my first velvety leafed calathea. It has constantly put out new leaves for me. It's only lost its oldest, tiniest leaves. Every new leaf is bigger than the last. They've got the beautiful red backside of them. They are super, super soft to the touch. I absolutely adore this plant, and it's already, I mean, it's already considerably bigger than when I got it. Not horribly, but like I'm really interested to see how much bigger it is going to be this time next year. But moving on, down here on the floor right now we have Maria, called Maria because she is an Aglaonema. Maria is the variety. And she was originally in my office, but I had moved her in here because I felt like she needed more light. And she has definitely been happier since I moved her in here. So she might just stay here. She really might just stay here. She is by this west-facing door. This door doesn't get a ton of direct light, you guys, because my house, like, there's my kitchen door. My house like blocks a lot of the light because of the other side of the house being there, if that makes sense. So I think it's like a nice level of light for her that she's really enjoying. So I think I'm just going to leave her there for now. She has been putting out a lot of new growth. We did lose like a lot of leaves, but then she has also been getting new growth coming in. And reminder, you guys, Aglaonema are clumping plants, so it won't ever just be one stalk like you see there. Here's a new one that is starting right there to come out of the soil. If you can see it, camera focus, come on. I swear, this camera sometimes drives me nuts, you guys. But you can see there, that is a new growth point pushing out of the soil. So that will turn into a completely new stalk. So if you guys ever lose a stalk, because I think I lost one right here, this is like a stalk. I just cut the last dying leaf off of this the other day. Now it still is rooted in there, so I don't want to, I'm just going to leave it be for now. When it does completely die off, if it completely dies off, I will pull it out. But if you ever lose a stalk like that on an Aglaonema, don't worry too much about it because it will push up new growth points just elsewhere in the soil. But definitely hoping that she is going to get bigger and more full this year now that she is getting, like, I think what is a better level of light for her. Now, if we move on, let's see here, let's go upwards to the Tradescantia fluminescens albovitata. And hopefully our lighting will be okay as we get closer in here. I think we're all right. So I did just recently give this gal another haircut. She just grows so insanely fast. But she did bounce back really quickly from the root pruning that we did in my what to do when your houseplants get too big video. I swear, you guys, I feel like I'm getting winded. When I do houseplant tours, I just am talking so much and walking around. I just start to feel winded and I don't even know why. It's not like I'm an out of shape person. But anyways, she bounced back really quickly. She did lose some leaves, but it's no big deal because as you can see up here at the very top, we are starting to get a bunch of new growth coming in. I don't know if you can see all this right here, this new vine growth coming in over the side. So where she did lose some leaves in here, it's gonna get covered by all of that new growth. But all in all, she is doing fabulous. Tradescantia is just, I mean, they're just prolific growers, you guys. I have heard some people say they have struggled with having them indoors and keeping them happy. I don't know why. I don't know how, because they're just such prolific growers. But once again, maybe it's because like over time, especially if you don't keep them trimmed, the vines can start to look a little bit ratty. But once again, just cut them off, plant them back in the top, and start over. It's literally all you have to do. They root so quickly. I mean, they're pretty easy to restore to looking beautiful if something does go awry, and they're pretty freaking hard to kill in my experience, you guys. But she is looking beautiful, and she definitely gets indirect light over here because she is obviously to the side of this door, and then obviously there is a wall, a mini wall there before the windows over here, so it's not even like she's getting a ton of light, and she still just grows like crazy. Absolutely love this plant. Now let me step way further back and adjust the light so we can look at the Begonia maculata. Okay, well, good news, I did not have to adjust the light. I just had to step back because as you can see, she is huge. She is beautiful, but I'm kind of feeling like I need to do some serious propagating on her. This light coming in the window right now, though, is making her look like she is on fire. And like, not just because she's so pretty, but because the light is shining through onto those leaves and making those red backs just kind of looks super bright and beautiful. And this plant, you guys, I love this plant. I hate the fact that it had the fabric plugs on it or plug on it when I bought it. I definitely struggled with it a little bit till I figured out that that was what was going on. But ever since I repotted it, and that was one of the earliest videos I did with you guys, but ever since then, we have definitely taken off. I've got a ton of supports in there trying to help hold her various vines up. She grows like a wild child. I let her grow like a wild child, but we are getting a little bit like in the way. So let me see if I can get to the other side of her here so you can see how far this one branch is like sticking out into the room. You guys see that? Like we are definitely sticking way far out there. So I think I might need to do a little bit more propagating and kind of repositioning to kind of get her back to like where I want her to be and not as sprawled out, because she also keeps trying to tilt over in her pot. I don't know if you can tell how the branches are in there. Like they're kind of leaning that way. It's just she's just a little bit too heavy to one side. So I think I'm gonna have to trim her down. I don't want to though. She looks so beautiful. I hate it. I don't want to do it, but I think it's gonna have to happen. Now, real quick, you guys. Oh, this is Toby's house. I like to call this Toby's beach house because it overlooks the pool out back. I have random plants up here right now, and they're not in Toby's way. Don't worry. Toby likes to lay on this. Well, he'll lay here sometimes, but he really likes to lay on this one down here mostly. So it's not like, I just let the plants take over his, house or anything like that. But I needed more light for these alocasias, and they've done so much better since I put them in southern facing windows. But I need to get, once again, some more plant stands or something for down here where I can put them so that they're not up on his house. So that's why they're up there, and we will look at those in a second. It's a bit of a hot mess, but it is what it is. So up above the Begonia maculata, we do have my philodendron brantianum, brandy for short. Let me come around this way, see if we can get this lighting to be a little bit better here. I think that's a little bit better. Like I said, you guys, southern giant facing windows like this are fabulous for your plants. They're fabulous for natural light in your house. It sucks for filming. Sucks for filming. Completely, it's horrible for filming. So I'm doing my best, but I think we may need to bump the exposure up a little bit. Let's see. Hopefully that helps. But you can see, looking beautiful with our silver variegated leaves. I think Brandy is enjoying this lighting much more than where she used to be in my office. We seem to be growing a little bit better, but I need to propagate Brandy and get rid of this scraggly looking crap down here from all of those issues she was having when she was living in my office. Primarily, the biggest issue was that her leaves kept getting stuck and not unfurling all the way, which is why we have like a bunch of like damaged leaves and things like that. I don't know if you can see the edge of that one's damaged. And so, yeah, I just really will do that in the plant chores video that, you know what, I definitely am going to have to do. So we will get her cleaned up looking better, but hopefully we will look way better than we do now this time next year. Honestly, I think she looked better when I originally got her than she does now. I'll flash up on screen what she originally looked like. Obviously, she hadn't started to vine yet at that point, but it's just been one thing after another with this plant. And I know you guys a lot of you have said you've had the similar issues with this plant, but I know plenty of people who have had big, beautiful ones as well. I am actually starting to question if maybe she would just prefer to be on a pole. So at some point this year, we might try to move her to a pole, but for now, she's gonna stay in this hanging planter hanging here above the Begonia maculata. Okay, so let's move on to the plants on Toby's house, all the alocasias and the one sedum that is up here. And you can tell our lighting is starting to get lower, you guys. So let me spin around this way, see if we can get better lighting in here. Okay, so here's our Alocasia bambino, which, as I had mentioned, I believe in a recent video, this plant did have spider mites earlier this year, and we lost a ton of leaves, but we are finally starting to get our leaves back. We are looking better. We do have, you can see where all the old leaves were down there at the base of the stem. This plant, I did repot it as part of a attempt to get rid of the spider mites. I changed out the soil and like, yeah, I didn't quite get it low enough in the pot. So that's why those are so exposed. It probably should be about an inch lower in the pot, but it's okay because it worked. The spider mites are gone and we are putting out new leaves, which is making me super happy. Now moving over here, we have the Sedum dasyphilum major. So this is the plant that reminds me of the donkey's tail, but it's so much less fragile and it is very resilient because I also apparently misestimated when this one needed to be watered the last time, and that's why we've got a lot of yellow going on in there. That's not sun stressing. Now, this plant will get sun stressed to a lovely kind of orange shade, and sometimes some yellows, but that is because I went too long between watering it. But it's okay because it recovered and you can see all this new growth coming in the more appropriate green color down here. We do still have a bunch of aerial roots. I don't know why, probably because I went too long without watering it and it was trying to soak up water from the air. I'll get all those trimmed off eventually. It just takes a lot of time. But I am super happy about this plant. My plan is to turn this into a hanging plant. I just haven't gotten around to doing it. Maybe we'll do that in the plant chores video too. And then I will probably hang it in this window, just like right up above where it is. That is the current plan, but definitely loving it. We haven't looked at the donkey's tail yet. The donkey's tail has gotten ridiculously long in the a little over a year that I've had it. So I can't wait to see what this one looks like at the end of this year. Hopefully it is trailing as much as the donkey's tail is. Now over here we have my beautiful Alocasia cuprea that I absolutely adore, and look how giant that leaf is, you guys. I don't think that's the newest one. Maybe that is the newest one. No, that's not the newest one, I don't think. Maybe. We'll get in there in a second and see, but absolutely loving this plant, you guys. I just realized I had my head in the string of bananas. Hold on one second. Okay, we're gonna come at it from this side because the string of bananas that's hanging back there, I don't know if the spider mites are totally gone or not, and it was just hanging on my head, which means I'm probably gonna have to take a shower after this. Definitely gonna have to take a shower after this. But regardless, let's get back to this Alocasia cuprea looking absolutely beautiful. I'm not sure what happened here. Oh, I do know what happened here. We got stuck when we were unfurling and I had to help it. And apparently I got a little bit of a tear in there, but all in all, it still turned out okay on that leaf. That is the newest leaf. I can see now that that is the newest leaf, and it is a little bit smaller than the other ones that had come in before that you can see that were way bigger, but it did get stuck, so that might be why it was a little bit smaller. But if you can see down here in the bottom, a corm has rooted somewhere in this pot, and we have a new baby little Alocasia cuprea pressing up out of the soil here, which means this is eventually going to be a much fuller looking plant. But I've been super impressed with this one, you guys, and once again, it loves being in the southern facing window. We started pumping out way more growth once I moved it in here from my bathroom where it was getting east facing light. I really just feel like alocasias really want a lot of light, you guys. It is one of my best tips I can give you for alocasias and getting them to grow more is to give them more light than you think they need. Now that being said, this guy right here, this guy, my Alocasia maharani, this plant, I can't with this plant. We had spider mites shortly after I originally got it, which was in November of last year. So I've had this one for a year and a month, and we were fine. Like we only lost like one leaf when we had spider mites, but then we just stopped growing or doing anything. Like I don't know what the deal was, and we really have not really picked up growth at all since then. But as you can see, we do have a new leaf coming in right now, right there, and we did recently get this one. But then I also had to cut the oldest one off recently. And then I don't know what the deal is because honestly, out of all my alocasias, this one is the one I have the least problems with guttation on. But while I was out of town, and my roommate, she didn't water this one when I was out of town. This was not on her list to water. I didn't even water it when I got back because it still seemed fine to me. But let me get this camera to, sorry you guys, this gimbal has a learning curve. But if you can see here, that transparency and everything right there, that is from massive guttation that is causing that. It's even worse on the other side. So let me get around this way. See if we can, I'm sorry, I'm like in the Begonia maculata right now, you guys. I'm trying to maneuver. Do you see that spot right there? Look at that. That is the worst guttation issue I've ever seen on any of my plants, like the worst like damage situation. And it never did this until like this week. I don't know what the heck is going on. Like we start pushing out new growth and something else goes wrong. It drives me absolutely crazy. So hopefully this year will be our year and we will fill back in and look beautiful. But I don't know. I'm not holding my breath because it'll probably start flowering nonstop because that's what happened last spring. And it just kept flowering and flowering. I kept cutting them off and cutting them off, but all it wanted to do was push out flowers and no new leaves. And so we sat here with only 2 leaves and a crap ton of flowers for months and months and months. But like I said, at least we're pushing out new leaves now. So hopefully that's a sign that we're taking a turn for the better. But let's get back to the other side over here and we'll look at what's in the windowsill. Okay, so over here we have my beautiful variegated Hoya carnosa compacta that has really started taking off big time in terms of growth. You can see this whole new growth point right here. There's a little growth point starting back there. You can see all of that white growth right there is new growth. Even down on our longest vine down there, we are starting to finally get new growth down there. There is only one section on here that is really not growing a lot, and it's back here. And those leaves are starting to look a little bit yellow. It's hard to tell on camera, but in person I can tell they're looking a little bit yellow. And when I got back from being out of town recently, I did show you guys that this plant had needed to be watered before I got back. And I didn't realize that it was going to need to be watered before I got back. And the leaves had started to pucker. And once again, I don't let that happen on my Carnosa compactas. It usually results in leaves dying. And that's why I think those are starting to turn yellow and I might lose a few back there. But we have bounced back from that underwatering situation. There is no puckering on these leaves currently. And like I said, we are just starting to push out a bunch of new growth. So I am really excited to see what this one's going to look like at the end of this year because we should have vines trailing all around instead of just that one really long vine. But moving along over to here, we have my succulents and we have my Echeveria right here. This is the original plant that I had beheaded this and propagated it back in February. Once again, one of my earliest videos I ever did on this channel, and I cringe when I watch it now. So, you know, next time I have to do this, I'll film a better video of that for you guys. But this is the original stem that was left in here. This is what has grown back. Looks absolutely beautiful. Thankfully, we are not getting leggy because we absolutely love these southern facing windows. And same thing with the Graptovaria over here. It has always been 2 plants in that pot. I beheaded one in February, and then I beheaded that one after that. So that is just a propagation from the plant that was originally in that pot, and then this is what's grown back off the original stem. So very easy to propagate succulents that way. It's my favorite way to do it, and absolutely love how these plants look. I know this is on my list of plants to sell, but I almost don't want to sell it, you guys, because look how beautiful it is. It's so beautiful. I love these plants. Gorgeous. But let me go around to the other side so we can look at the string of dolphins, and I'll explain why that one's on top of that one in a second. Okay, so I did water these earlier, and this one, I didn't want it to like be wet sitting on the windowsill, so that's why it was sitting up there. But as you can see, we are getting longer. We are starting to trail. And once again, eventually I will combine these back together, but this was a rescue attempt off of this string of dolphins because it was severely underwatered when I bought it, and I didn't realize like kind of what had happened. It had been overwatered, then it was underwatered, and there's a whole long story. If you're not familiar with it, I don't want to like repeat for everybody that already knows, but basically this was just, I had to rehab this plant to save it, and it's working. It's coming back. So I think probably towards the end of summer is when I will try to combine these, because the root systems in pots this small for these kind of plants, like they're not going to get root bound enough to warrant it until that point. So yeah, and as they grow out more and more, I'm going to propagate them back into the top to fill in even more. So hopefully by the end of summer, we will be able to combine everything into a nice, probably maybe 3 or 4 inch pot of trailing beautiful string of dolphins. But speaking of string of plants, let's go look at the string of bananas. All right, you guys, here she is. And honestly, down here at the bottom, she doesn't look that bad. We haven't lost a lot of bananas down here. They're doing fine. We are still putting out new growth here at the bottom. Everything's good at the bottom, but because of the spider mites and all the pest treatments and everything else, we have lost so many bananas up higher, you guys. I know the lighting's gonna make it hard to see, but I'm sure you guys can tell. You can probably see all those shriveled little ones on the vines, like, ugh, let me see if I can get the lighting up some. I don't know if that's better or worse, but you see all the shriveled bananas, like, sorry, it wants to focus on my finger when I do that. So depressing, so depressing. Super depressed, but she'll make a comeback. And what I will probably do is over time, I will trim each of those barren vines. Just, I don't want to do them all at once because she won't be able, her root system will be overwhelmed with water if I do that. But little by little, I'm going to trim them up and then probably also propagate some of this more full stuff off of the bottom and move it back into the top. I'll get her back to looking like she was before. I'm not 100% positive that the spider mites are completely gone. I'm gonna pull her down tomorrow morning and double check, but hopefully she's had a bunch of treatments. And so hopefully this time next year, we'll be back to looking our gorgeous, full, lovely self. But in the meantime, let's move on to the last few plants in this room over by my nightstand. All right, you guys, so here is my Aphelandra squarosa, also commonly called a zebra plant, not to be confused with the Haworthia we looked at earlier that is also commonly called a zebra plant. And if you'll notice, we have some like crispy leaf tip situations going on. We are still putting out tons of new growth up top though, and you can see it's beautiful in dark green like it should be. But basically what happened here is when the light started coming in more direct in this room, when that happens, the number of days I go between watering this plant drops drastically, and I did not stay on top of the shift when it happened this year, and that's why we got a little bit unhappy, but that's okay. It's okay. We're still fine. We're still looking big and beautiful, and I'm sure we are going to get even more big and beautiful this year because we pretty much more than doubled in size last year. So super happy about that. We did not flower this year, but that's okay. We don't have to flower every year. We flowered the first year. I'm sure we will flower again at some point. But right now, I am still super happy with this plant. And even if we lose some of these lower leaves, it's not going to be like that big of a deal, you guys, because it's not like we're going to be looking barren or anything like that. And yeah, I'm not that worried about it. Absolutely loving that plant though. But the last plant that we are going to take a look at here is the Pearls in Jade pothos. So the Epiprimnum aureum, pearls and jade. And we have been loving life over here on the nightstand. We are looking gorgeous. And look at this new leaf that just came in, you guys. Look at the coloring on that. It just stood out to me when I walked in here earlier. Like, I mean, look at it. It's beautiful. I'm absolutely loving it. And look how long our one trailing vine has finally gotten. Absolutely love it. So I think it's going to look really cute when it starts to trail off of the edge of the nightstand over here. And we do still have those green leaves from where that one vine had started to revert. And let me see what our newest growth point on that vine is looking like. I think that's it. Maybe not. Hold on. Let me see. Nope, we got more growth over here. What's going on? We're getting a bit tangled, I think. What are we doing? Oh, we're trying to stretch towards the window. That's what we're doing. Okay, so we did have a variegated leaf. Now we're back to green. Back to green. I think we've completely reverted again. So I'm probably going to have to go in and chop this one way further back up in there in order to kind of try to promote the variegation on this. So we might do that in the plant chores video that I'm definitely recording tomorrow because I'm realizing there is just so much that needs to be done. But all in all, I am just happy that we finally started to grow this year because as you guys know, if you've been around here for a while, this plant took forever to start growing. So definitely happy to see how much bigger we're going to get this year. But let's go ahead and move on to our next room. Okay guys, so first up in the bathroom is my White Fusion Calathea, and we have lost quite a few leaves in the last like week or so, and we had been battling spider mites. I think we're pretty much rid of them now, and I think that's why we had the leaf loss that we did. But remember, the same thing happened to me around this time last year, and I always chalked it up to the last pest spray I did on her being what caused her to drop all the leaves, and then she came back to her beautiful self over a period of months. But if she ends up losing as many leaves this time this year as she did last year, and then she comes back from that again, I'm tempted to say that's just what this plant does, is maybe it just dies back in the winter and then comes back in the spring. But I will be sure to keep you guys updated on that. But just, oh, she's so beautiful. I love her. Love her so much. But moving on to above the tub, and this is another tricky lighting situation, but actually it kind of is looking somewhat okay right now. We'll get up in there closer in a second. But obviously I have all of my Marantas here. My red Maranta, which has grown so much in the time that I've had her. I mean, she is huge. And we've got that one vine starting to trail down there. So probably will be propagating that here sometime in the not too distant future. We have my lemon lime Maranta over here. This one has grown a ton in I think I've had it a year and a month now. Definitely looking beautiful as well and starting to trail. And then the green Maranta over here, this was the youngest Maranta that I had when I bought it. So it was like a 3-inch, maybe a 2-inch. No, I think it was a 3-inch plant when I got it. And something interesting happened a while back, and I told you guys about how its baby vines like stopped growing as much, and then it started pushing out new growth from the soil that I like to call its big boy vines. And so we have gotten bigger and bigger leaves. Let's get up in closer. Well, actually, before we get up in closer to look at that one, let's get the full shot up here of the philodendron cordatum, which once again is about to grow into the red Maranta. So we are going to have to be propagating that guy here soon as well. But let's just get up in here a little bit closer on these plants. All right, you guys, so here's the green Maranta up close, and look at that one beautiful new leaf right there. I love how dark those spots on the middle of the leaf come in, and then of course they do fade to a lighter green over time. It just looks so beautiful, but you can see how big these leaves are now compared to, we still have some baby ones up there from the original vines, the baby vines that this plant had, those tiny ones. That is the last vine of the original vines from this plant. And something interesting has been happening with that. And that is something that I am going to cover in the plant chores video once again. And you know what, you guys keep talking about this plant chores business that I got to do. I am going to record that tomorrow, like I said. So you should be watching this video on a Wednesday. That plant chores video should be coming to you this Saturday. So stay tuned. But definitely loving how we are filling in here. We do look a little bald there, but once again, that's related to what I'm going to talk about in the plant chores video. But Big Mama over here, I mean, and you guys, I had to cut off like, I don't know, 10 dead leaves off of this the other day, like just old leaves that died. And look, she still looks crazy full. I mean, she just can't stop, won't stop growing. She is absolutely beautiful. I think all of the plants in here do exceptionally well because this is such a big room. It has very, very high ceilings. And so when I take a shower, the steam from the shower, which is also rather large, just kind of spreads out throughout this room. And like, I really think all of these plants just really appreciate that a lot. But once again, here's a close-up of the lemon lime Maranta looking absolutely beautiful. I am curious to see if the lemon lime Maranta will end up as big as the red Maranta by the end of this year, because I will have had that one for about as long as I've currently had this one at that point. And they were the same size when I bought them. So stay tuned. And at the end of this year, we'll find out. But here is the philodendron cordatum. Let's see, this one is the hardest one to film, you guys. The lighting is so difficult. Let's go to the other side. Okay, that is much better. So we are definitely constantly putting out new growth. We are just constantly getting crazy long, constantly having to propagate this plant. Absolutely love it. We are getting to look, well, not getting to look. I repotted this a while back into this bigger pot situation. And so it made it look a little bit less full, especially around the top. So I have been replanting some of the propagations that I've done in the past back into the top of this plant to help it to look a little bit more full. And sometimes you just have to do that, you guys, when you take a like trailing plant up to a bigger pot. That's just kind of like something that happens quite frequently, especially if it's a plant like this that doesn't produce its own new vines. Then you have to kind of help it along. Now, the Marantas down here are rhizome-based plants, so they will produce their own new vines up out of the soil without you having to do anything. But definitely loving how everybody in here is looking, and that is the only plants that I currently have in here. So let's move on to our next room. All right, you guys, I actually just realized that we had missed a plant because this plant was in my shower because I had given it a pest spray down earlier because it has been battling spider mites. So this is my Caladium Hilo Beauty. And if I can find, I do think I have a picture of before we got spider mites, and I will flash that up on screen for you. And as you can tell, we are like not as big and beautiful as we were pre-spider mite situation. And unfortunately, this plant does not respond well to pest treatments in general. Pretty much every pest spray I have used on this plant, it just doesn't like it. And so you can see we do have like a corm below the soil that has pushed out a new plant down in there. And that's what this leaf that you're seeing here is from. Now there's a new leaf coming in here. And as you can tell, it looks like it's going to be pretty big. And that's because it's coming from the original corm. You can see that larger stalk down there at the base of the plant. And I did, just before I gave this plant the last spray down today, have to remove the last like big leaf that was coming off of that shoot because it had webbing on it. But the good news is it is a corm-based plant. So what I can always do is take this plant out of its pot, dig around in there, find some corms, make sure I wash them off really thoroughly so that there's no pests on them, and just basically start over from scratch. Because I absolutely love how this plant looks, and I'm so sad that it's been struggling so much. All right, you guys, so we're in the dining room, and of course we have one of my favorite plants right here, my Stromanthe Trio Star, aka tricolor ginger plant. And I mean, she has just gotten even more massive, I think, than the last time I showed her to you guys. She just has been pumping out so much new growth. She looks so much better right now than she did this time last year. If I can find a picture, I'll flash it up there for you on screen. But I am just so impressed with her. I kind of want to get you like some other angles on her, but the way the lighting is, I'm worried we're going to get blown out. Actually, no, I think we're doing okay. Except that I'm hitting the dining room table with my butt, but she looks fabulous. From all angles, she is looking absolutely gorgeous. At this rate, I am definitely going to need to repot her into a bigger pot in the spring. Hopefully, fingers crossed, nothing goes awry this winter because she did have that bacterial infection last winter, but just super impressed with her. Now, next to her, we do have the Syngonium glogo, and I recently repotted this plant on a whim. It was having a hard time staying upright in its pot, and we've been getting some yellow leaves since then. I think it's just going through a little bit of shock, but all of our leaves up here on top still look absolutely beautiful. I love Syngoniums. They love my northern facing windows. It is totally an acceptable level of light for them. They do very well in low light situations in my experience. And then moving on over to here, we have my beautiful marble queen pothos. You guys know how much I love my marble queen pothos. Let me get our lighting up a little bit more here so you guys can see a little bit better. That might be too much. The lighting is starting to get lower, but actually it makes it a little bit easier to film you guys because otherwise this would be completely blown out. But you can see how gorgeous she is. She has more than doubled in size in the time that I have owned her. And I can't even imagine what she's going to look like at this time next year. And we are starting to kind of like get close to trailing the floor again. So I think we are going to need to propagate again, which is totally fine by me because putting her cuttings in with my, for example, Syndapsis cuttings has really helped them to root much more quickly. So if I do have to propagate her, that is definitely what I'm going to do, is add her cuttings in with other cuttings that typically take longer to root. Now, let me try and spin around. You guys, I'm like really trying not to hit the dining room table behind me while I'm doing this. So sorry if it's getting a little bit choppy while I'm trying to move. I'm doing my best. So if we come over to here, we have the Schismatoglottis. And I love my Schismatoglottis, you guys. Absolutely love it. We are looking a tad bit blown out again, I swear. Lighting, once again. Love that this house has 38 windows, but makes it difficult to film sometimes. You can see how beautiful my Schismatoglottis is looking here. Now, guttation, I have talked about it. This is what's going on. That's why this leaf looks like this, and some of the other ones have damage, is because this plant guttates like nobody's business. I swear, I think it's even worse than my like alocasias. But I will tell you guys, the new leaves come in so quickly, I don't really care that much because you can remove those and then already it's got a ton of new leaves. Let me see if we can get further down in there so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. Let me try to move some of these leaves. The camera will focus. There's all kinds of new leaves coming in. There's a new leaf right there. There's new leaves coming in over here. So even if you have to remove leaves, it's just constantly pushing out new leaves. It's a clumping plant too, kind of like the Aglaonema that we looked at. And so it definitely is going to just push out more and more growth, even if you lose growth. So don't worry about that too much. Now, I will tell you guys that for whatever reason, I think that this plant gutates more when it's like warm outside during the day and then significantly cooler at night, which is what has been happening lately here. All last winter, I had no problem with guttation when it was just cold in the morning and cold in the evening, just cold all around. This plant was fine. It's only when we seem to have those drastic temperature changes between the day and the night that I see all this crazy guttation start to happen. But I don't care. Still absolutely love this plant. I think it is absolutely gorgeous. Now we've got one more plant to look at in here, and let me readjust because it's hung up high. All right, you guys, last plant in the dining room is the beautiful Philodendron Brazil. Love this plant. This plant has been doing pretty well in this north-facing window. We haven't really lost a ton of our variegation or anything like that. We do have some solid green leaves further down here. And so I think when I propagate this plant, I will try to cut this one back to where it started to revert so that hopefully we will produce out some more variegation. And honestly, you guys, I need to rotate this plant and my Syndapsis pictus exotica. And nope, those are the only ones. I feel like I need to kind of rotate these around so that whoever's hanging in the north-facing window isn't here year-around, because that's just eventually, I think, going to wreak havoc on the variegation. But this plant, I've already propagated it a bunch. It has gotten massive in the time that I have owned it. We definitely need to propagate again. We're getting kind of low. And so once again, I can't wait to see what this plant is going to look like at this time next year. But let's go ahead and move on to our next room. You guys, I just realized we forgot to look at the plants on the coffee table when we were in the living room. So we do have my Calathea ornata, aka pinstripe Calathea, or Gopertia ornata now. But we do still have our one old leaf from last winter when things went awry after getting spider mites. It's still able to photosynthesize, you guys, so I'm not going to cut it off until, I feel like it's absolutely necessary. Does it look the prettiest? No. Do I care? No. It's fine. It's helping the plant survive, but look at all of our new leaves we got this year. Look at these gorgeous new leaves. We are definitely super happy. We do have some slight crispy leaf tippage going on there. That's probably because I came back a little bit later than anticipated from my trip, and this plant definitely needed to be watered as soon as I got back. But all in all, I am so happy with the comeback that she has made this year. So hopefully we continue to just get bigger and more beautiful over the course of this year. Now, this guy, don't even get me started. Y'all know how I feel about this. This is the watermelon peperomia, aka Peperomia argyrea, not argyreis, I think. Once again, I'll flash it up on screen if I'm wrong for you. I can't with this plant. I mean, all my other peperomias, you guys have seen them. They look fabulous. This one, no. We got cracked leaves. We got all kinds of crazy crap going on over here. Like, I don't know if you guys can see that edge. No, it's hard to see on there. That's a little bit hard to see. I don't know. It's hard to get in there to see all this stuff. But look at how wonky these stems are going. Look how crazy this thing looks. Like, I'm just over it. I'm over it. It doesn't even permanently live on this coffee table. It's just here because I thought maybe getting a little bit more light from these southern windows would help. Nothing helps with this plant. I don't get it. I don't get this plant. None of you have ever told me that you've had success with this plant. All of you just tell me that you have the same problem. So if anybody out there actually has had success and has tips, please comment below and let us all know. But in the meantime, let's move on to some prettier plants in my office. All right, you guys, so we are currently in my office, and here is my big, beautiful white butterfly syngonium. Definitely has gotten massive in the time that I have owned it, which has been maybe a year and 3 months at this point. I am probably going to need to propagate it very soon because we are getting some super duper long trailing vines. I don't know if you can see up in there that are trailing kind of below the windowsill now, but I'm not going to do it just yet. Maybe in a couple months, I think. But absolutely loves living in this north-facing window. Absolutely doing fabulous. I have not had any problems with this plant except for the fact that it did have thrips apparently when I bought it, but we eradicated those pretty quickly and we haven't had no problems since then, other than the occasional like stuck leaf that I have to help come out. Hi, Toby. Toby has joined us in the office as well, so you might hear him in the background. But if we move along to the other side of the Syngonium here, we do have my Pilea glauca, and this plant has just been a super rapid grower for me. I feel like this lighting is a little bit off. I'm gonna come at it from the other side, you guys. Okay, I lied, you guys. I think the lighting is actually better from this side, but you can see how beautiful those greenish, silverish, like kind of almost aqua colored leaves are. Absolutely love it, with those red vines definitely looking super full, trailing very low. We have not hit the ground again yet since the last time we propagated this plant. I think we're probably okay for another month or so before I'll have to give her another trim. And that propagation that we did, that was the first time I had propagated this plant. It is doing wonderful. It is in the IKEA cabinet right now, but absolutely love this plant. This one is probably going to go crazy this year. Hi, Toby. You look so cute next to that plant. Yes, you do. But yeah, probably gonna get way, way bigger this year because it just grew so fast last year. And I've been contemplating, you guys. Let me see if we can get us up here where you can see. I've been contemplating putting her up there and just kind of letting her trail out of that arch in that window up there. I also have been contemplating just taking the blinds off these windows because I leave them open like all the time. I don't even know what the point of having them here half raised is. It's just kind of silly. So I might do that. I'm thinking about it. I don't know. We'll see. But moving on, over here we do have my Thaumatophyllum bipennatifidum and my Pilea caderii, my aluminum plant. Let's get closer in on this aluminum plant first because this aluminum plant is driving me absolutely freaking crazy, you guys. I am pretty much over this plant at this point. Like, I can't. Like, all the leaf drop that happens, it's just insane. Toby, you gotta keep your tail out of the video, buddy. You're so cute. You're so cute. Okay, so yeah, just tons of leaf drop constantly. You can see the leaves down there on the floor if it'll focus. Tons of leaf drop. Toby is licking my hand while I'm trying to do this, you guys. But anyways, it's just starting to look a little bit bald. I have been propagating branches off of it to try to promote new growth further down to fill it back in. It's been working, but like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of over it. I don't know, you guys. We'll see what happens. I love how the leaves look though with the silver variegation on them. I just wish we weren't constantly just dropping leaves. And I honestly, I don't know. I don't know. And then Toby drags his tail through it and knocks more leaves off, don't you, Toby? But like I said, behind that we have the Thaumatophyllum bipennatifidum, looking absolutely beautiful as always, has recovered completely from being repotted recently. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it down below for you. I feel like we need to bump our exposure up a little bit here so you can see this plant a little bit better. There we go. I will tell you one thing though, you guys. I was looking at the newest leaf when I got home from visiting my parents, and I swear these leaves almost look fake. They almost look completely and totally like almost like plastic. Like, it's just crazy how this plant looks. I just can't believe it's real. Like, it's so weird. It is such a weird plant, and I just absolutely love it for that reason. I mean, come on, it is just fabulous. It is fabulous. It is big, it is beautiful, and I am super happy that I bought it. I am interested to see how much bigger we get this year. Hopefully not too big to where I'm gonna have to relocate it because I do like having it in here, but we'll see. I am now going to grab my rattlesnake calathea off of my desk, you guys, because my desk is a mess and I don't want you to see how messy it is. So one second. Okay, so this is the rattlesnake calathea that a friend of mine gave me for my birthday last year. So I will officially have had this one for a year in 22 days, actually. My birthday is about to come up again. Absolutely love my rattlesnake calatheas, as you know. This one has not grown quite as quickly as the one that is in my bedroom, but that's because it's probably not getting as much light. I mean, let me rephrase that. That is because it's not getting enough light, most likely, because it is on my desk, which is about probably 4 feet away from the north-facing windows in here. Now, during the shorter times of year, like now, I will move it onto the floor by the windows for part of the day, just so I can be sure that it is getting enough light. But honestly, it's doing fine. I swear, Toby, that tail, pal. But yeah, definitely doing good. We have put out a significant amount of growth, even though we're not growing as fast as the one in my bedroom. But yeah, definitely love having it on my desk. It is my only desk plant. Toby apparently is really liking it right now. You guys, can we just... Do you see this goofball? He's like, Mom, quit telling people about the plants and pet me. I want belly rubs. I want belly rubs. All right, buddy. You and me have a date after this video is done being filmed, I promise. But yeah, definitely loving life in this room. I think this plant is doing just fine, and hopefully it will get maybe as big as the one in my bedroom over the course of this year. But let's move on to our next room. Actually, real quickly, you guys, because the IKEA cabinet is in here, I'm not going to go through all the plants in here because these are all just propagations that I am selling to benefit charity. There are no like permanent plants of mine in here at the moment, but everybody in here is doing fine and fabulous. But none of these plants will be here at the end of next year because, like I said, they are going to be getting sold. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the kitchen. All right, you guys, I think we'll start over here with my big, beautiful salsa dancer hibiscus. This is a variegated hibiscus, and I absolutely adore this plant. Now, you guys are gonna see a bunch of propagations going on like in the background in here. Just don't worry about those. Like I said, they're all getting sold anyway, and I just really didn't have anywhere else to move them to, so excuse the propagation craziness in the background. But this plant is one of my favorite plants. It was a rescue. It was severely underwatered at the garden center that I got it at. And basically I brought it back to life. It is a nonstop grower. It is prolific. It gets all the shades, all the colors. Let's get a little bit closer up in here so you can see all of the pink and green and white variegated leaves. So as you can see, lots of different colored leaves, lots of different types of variegation going on in this plant. I mean, look at this leaf. That is beautiful. I absolutely adore this plant. Now, she is rather large. She technically should really probably be living outside, but she just is a little bit finicky with the Texas weather outside. It is really too warm for her for most of the summer and too cold for her for most of the fall and winter. So that is why she now lives in my kitchen. I don't know how long she's going to be able to stay in here. I have not repotted her. I've had her for we're close to 2 years. We're going to be 2 years in the spring, I think. And so I need to get her out of this pot and see kind of how we're looking and maybe do some root pruning to try to keep her, at a maintainable size. But absolutely love her. But up above her here, we have the donkey's tail. So this is a Sedum morganum. I'll flash it on screen for you guys. And this plant, as you know, is super sensitive. These leaves fall off all the freaking time. I have stated before, I will state again, they fall into the hibiscus. There's probably going to be trailing vines like this eventually growing out of the pot of the bottom of the hibiscus just because, well, they root pretty quickly once they fall onto soil. And so this plant has grown massively for me. It didn't even like trail at all when I bought it. I have had it for I think about a year and 2 months maybe now. And yeah, that's like over a 1.5 foot of growth that it's done in that time frame. And I'm absolutely loving how it is looking. It does have new vines starting way up in the top two that are going to trail over the side and fill in where you're seeing some of those gaps right there. Now I do, I am having a hard time like with watering this plant lately and not losing a ton of leaves and stuff. It's just a difficult one. I can't set it down. I have to take it off, hold it while I'm watering it, let all the water drain through, and then just immediately hang it again. If I do anything else, stuff falls off of this plant. But I'm absolutely loving how it's looking. I'm glad we are doing well. I seem to have the watering down. Because it is in this is a southeast facing window, it does, especially this time of year, use up its water pretty quickly. So right now I am watering it probably once every 2 weeks, but I basically just wait till the soil looks mostly dry, and then when those leaves start to get just a tiny bit of puckering on them, then I go in and I give it a nice deep watering. But I definitely think we're gonna have to propagate it at some point this year, so stay tuned for that. But let's move on to the orbifolia on the kitchen table. All right, you guys, and this is the time of year I mentioned before that the orbifolia tends to grow more this time of year because there is more light coming in the windows over here. And we are starting to get new leaves coming in. One right down in here, let's see if I don't know if the lighting's gonna be good. Oh yeah, you can see it right here. We got a new one coming in. And then in the back there, there's another new one coming in. So that is gonna help to fill in kind of this weird kind of gap here. I did have to remove a few leaves a couple weeks ago. They were just the oldest leaves. They just kind of naturally had died off. I did go a little bit too long in between waterings recently, and that's what happened here, but that's not that big of a deal. She still is looking fabulous. She definitely has gotten way bigger in the time that I have owned her, but not as much as I thought she might. So maybe this will be the year where we really start to get a lot taller and fuller and bigger looking. But regardless, absolutely love her. Now, also on the table right now, it's just here because I still haven't figured out where it's going to permanently live yet. And you know what? Maybe once I move the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma upstairs, I will put this guy behind the couch in the living room where that plant was. So this is my philodendron Paraíso verde, I think is how it is pronounced. Forgive me if my Spanish was not right there. But we did a little while back give this guy this little pole here, and it is now tall enough to kind of start to try and attach to it. I did tie it onto there, and eventually it will start to hopefully grab onto that. Now we did lose our oldest leaves after I transferred this from sphagnum moss into just my epiphyte soil. And you know, I think that's just part of the process when you're moving plants from like moss into soil. Expect some leaf loss, but those were the most variegated leaves, and as you can tell, these are not super variegated right now. But part of that, I am being told, has to do with temperature, and that if I get a heat mat for this plant, that should increase the levels of variegation, because right now, I mean, it's all green. But I have had plenty of people tell me that to expect mostly green leaves during the fall and winter, and that I'll start getting that white variegation back during the spring and summer. So we will see what happens, but this is still relatively young plant. I don't even think I've had it 6 months. So we'll see how tall it gets and how much more variegation it gets by this time next year. But we're gonna move on to the plants by the sink next. Okay, so starting over here, and once again, there are a bunch of propagations up here, of course. If you're new to the channel, this is where a lot of my propagations initially sit to start rooting in water and whatnot. But we do have my air plants in the terrarium here. These they aren't going to get any bigger than what they are right now. They kind of just maintain their own size there. I did finally clean this thing out a while back because it did have, and does once again have, horrible hard water spots in it. That's why it looks foggy. I clearly need to do that again as well. One more thing to add to the chores list, you guys. And I do just mist these with this little plant mister directly in there twice a week. That's all I do. I don't take them out and soak them or anything like that. And they have done fine for me. I've actually had this for 3 years. What year are we in? We're in 2023. I've had this for 3 years now, almost 3 years, and they've done fine with me doing that. I don't have to do like anything crazy special for them. Then of course up here we have the beautiful cyclamen, and this is its time of year to shine because it is a plant that grows more in the fall and the winter than it does in the spring and summer. Now it is inside my house, so it continued to do fine during the spring and summer for me. It just didn't grow as fast. We didn't get as many flowers. And this is also going on the plant chores list, is to remove some of these spent flowers that, you know, there's no point in leaving these here after the flower part falls off, you guys. It's just using up energy that this plant could be putting into new leaf growth or more new beautiful flowers. So definitely gonna be doing that tomorrow as well. But this plant is almost doubled in size now from what it was when I bought it in October of last year. Hey, that's wrong. October, what am I trying to say? I'm telling you, you guys, I'm struggling with like talking about dates today. I got this, so I've had this for 1 year and 3 months. That's what I'm trying to say. And we have doubled in size in that time. So I'm excited to see how much bigger we get over the course of this year, because by this time next year, then we should be almost double the size we are now, but we shall see. And then as we move along, once again, just a lot of propagations here. Even that bromeliad in the back there is a propagation. I propagated that off of one of the bromeliads that I had originally had outside when I did my original landscaping project in my backyard. But it has recently actually started to grow. I mean, it's sat here for well over 1 year, putting out no new leaves, but now you can see those brighter green leaves. That's all new growth that it's putting out. So I'm happy to see that we're finally doing something, because for the longest time I was like, well, are we just going to look like this forever? But apparently not. We are now growing. So definitely excited to see what happens with this one. But moving on over here, we have the Haworthia retusa back here. This plant, I feel like, is starting to get a little bit leggy compared to what it originally looked like. And I think it's not like bad leggy. I think it's kind of like just how it grows. I'll flash up on screen for you what it looked like when I first got it. Let me see if I can get us a better shot from above. The lighting might not be good enough for that, but still loving how it looks. Love that it's got those windows, those kind of clear windows on the leaves that let the light in, that makes it look kind of transparent. Just a beautiful, beautiful succulent plant that's going to stay relatively small. So wouldn't be expecting too much of a massive growth increase over the course of this year. But if we continue on over to here, we have a couple of my peperomias, and then of course my black velvet alocasia. And as you will notice, my black velvet alocasia currently only has 3 leaves, but there is a new one starting to come in, if you can see right there, that little growth point coming in kind of in between where those chopsticks are. Obviously we're not attached to the chopsticks right now because the leaves are kind of behaving. That one over there I might need to attach at some point here, but basically you guys, I think I need to find a different place for this plant to live. In the summertime it does fine here, but right now it just doesn't get a lot of light until the very end of the day. And even then, it's only getting it coming from this side over here for a very brief period of time. And like I said earlier, I really feel like alocasias want more light than you think. So I might try to find a new place for it to live. But if I rotate it around, you can see those leaves are big and beautiful and gorgeous though. So we're not struggling. I think we just want more light. So I think I might give it some more light soon, which is kind of sad because I really like having it in the kitchen. But anyways, here we have one of my 2 Peperomia Shumi Reds. The bigger one is upstairs right now, I think. Yes, the bigger one is upstairs because I was testing it out. So this one is the one that I took upstairs when we put plants in my upstairs living room recently. And earlier today, or no, that was yesterday. I'm telling you, my days are blurring together. Yesterday, I took the bigger one up there to see if I liked it better, but honestly, I'm not sure I do. So when we go upstairs to look at the plants up there, I'm gonna bring this one and we can take a look at the 2 and see which one we like better. If we like this one better, it'll go up there and I'll probably move the one that's up there to here. Otherwise, this will stay here and that one will stay up there. But this has grown quite a bit. This was a propagation from the big one that's now upstairs, a single leaf propagation. And you can see like how big we've gotten just in the course of, I think, like probably a year since I propagated that. We've gotten relatively big. We are still just in a 2-inch pot. Let me move this guy out of the way. We're kind of blocking our view. But yeah, definitely super happy. Piccolo Banda Peperomia over here, however, is another story. This plant has been giving me some issues lately. I did recently repot it into some more epiphytic soil because it was not in my epiphyte mixture before, and peperomias for the most part are epiphytic plants. And so hopefully it will bounce back from that. It's only been in there for like maybe a week. That's why it's kind of looking not its best right now, but it's, I think it'll recover fine. The roots looked fine, so hopefully this time next year we will be looking much more big and beautiful, kind of closer to like what this plant's looking like. But let's go ahead and head upstairs since that is the last place that we have plants that we need to take a look at. Okay, so over here on the coffee table upstairs we have the baby Aphelandra squarosa. So we saw the big one that's in my bedroom downstairs. Obviously you can see this one doesn't have any kind of weird crispy leaf situation going on or whatnot. That's because I didn't mess up the watering on this one. So yeah, that's this kind of, I mean, I knew exactly what caused that. Like I said when we saw that one downstairs, but obviously if you get the watering right, this is what your plant should look like. But absolutely has been liking being in this east facing window. Now it's only been here, I guess, for about a week now, because like I said before, after we moved these plants up here, the heat stopped working and then I went out of town. So I moved all of them back downstairs just in case the heat went out while I was gone. And so they've been back up here. Heat is working for about a week now. And so far, so good. Now, next to this guy, I brought the little Shumi Red up here. I'm going to leave this one here. I'll grab the bigger one to show you in a second. But I like the height difference. I didn't like the other one there because it's the same height as the Syngonium that's back there. So if we get closer up in here, you can see this is the Syngonium that is one of the Illusion series Syngoniums. I think it's a berry illusion. It wasn't labeled once again, so I can't say for certain. But it has been doing pretty well since I moved it up here. I do see a slight yellow leaf right there. I think, once again, I probably estimated when this one needed to be watered while I was gone a little bit too soon. I think it got watered probably a day or two before it actually needed it, but it's fine. It will bounce back. And so we already saw this guy downstairs. Let me grab my bigger original Shumi Red plant to show you. All right, you guys, so here's the original plant. And actually, I do not have a cover pot for this plant right now. It is on my list of things I need to buy when I go shopping for a plant stand and pots for like the snow bush and everything. But this plant has definitely gotten way, way bigger in the time that I have had it. It definitely has been probably the fastest growing peperomia I own. Well, actually, probably my string of turtles, my Peperomia prostrata, definitely the fastest growing. But of my upright peperomias, this one has been the fastest growing for me. And it had been living downstairs in the living room on a shelf on the wall, pretty far from the southern facing windows. But once again, I had to do some rearranging a while back. And so I did move this one into the kitchen, and it was not in the place that this one was. But now that I'm sure I like this one up here with these plants, I'm going to move this one onto that little stand in the kitchen, assuming it's not too tall next to the black velvet alocasia, but we'll see. If it doesn't work there, I'll figure out some place to put it. But absolutely love this plant. I love the coloring on the leaves. It is just one of my favorite peperomias. But let's flip around and look at the plants in the windowsill behind me. And over here we have another frost peperomia. Now this was actually a propagation from a single leaf off of the frost peperomia that you saw in my living room. And this is the one that got the spontaneous sport variegation on it. But I have some sad news, you guys. The two most variegated leaves, when I got back into town and I was watering this plant, as I was shaking the water out when I was done watering it, they literally fell off just from me shaking the water out of the pot. But I took them and I put them in water to see if I can't propagate them. And like by doing that, if it works, I should be able to isolate that variegation and maybe get a fully variegated frost peperomia. Now, when leaves fall off like that, typically if you grab them and put them in water, they won't make it because they were already dying. But so far, I will cut in some footage here. So far, so good it seems. So fingers crossed we will get roots on those and maybe we can have a full, beautifully variegated peperomia. But other than that, this plant is looking great. I love this pot so much, but it doesn't go with this room. So I'm going to be buying a different pot for this plant and I'll find something else to put in that one. But if we move along over here, we have the Joseph's coat. And let me come at a different angle because the lighting's kind of bad there. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. And if you did see my holiday vlog videos, part 1 and part 2, in part 2 when I got back, this plant was like in the worst shape out of all my plants. It was severely underwater. It was drooping. It has bounced back for the most part, but it did lose a bunch of leaves. But that's okay. This plant from time to time gets bare stems like you see there, and then it'll push out new buds. But there are some whole sections that I feel like died. I don't know if you can see in here where that's just like dead growth. So I need to get in here and trim some of that out. But we're still alive. We're still alive. We didn't die. We didn't lose any plants. And this plant is a pretty, I guess, a medium rate grower. I did propagate a bunch of it off the top here that was getting a little bit lanky earlier this, well, I keep forgetting we're in 2023 now, you guys. Middle of last year, I guess, or late last year. I don't remember exactly when we did it. I think it was at the end of summer. And so, yeah, this was quite a bit taller, probably up to about here. So I'm anticipating that we will get taller this year as well, but it's not like the quickest grower, like I said. So we may not see a ton of difference between now and the end of the year with this plant. But let's look at our last plant, which is the rattlesnake calathea from the Is It Really Dead video. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it down below for you. But this plant is making its epic comeback. Look at all of those leaves that it has now, like so many more leaves. Every time I show it to you guys, it has gotten more and more leaves. It's not really losing the older leaves either, which is good. So we are starting to fill back in, which is making me super happy. And I just can't wait for this one to get like as big and full as my other ones. Now, obviously, it's only in a 3-inch pot, so it's going to take a while to get the size of the other ones. But hopefully by this time next year, maybe we'll be like at least half the size of the one that's in my office. Maybe. We'll just have to wait and see, but I'm just so happy that it has bounced back, and I'm just so proud of it. I'm so proud of this plant. I might be more proud of this plant than any of my other plants just for how it came back and what it had gone through and all of that. Once again, if you don't know the full story, I'll link the video down below for you in the description. But that is all of the plants, you guys. So let's head back downstairs and we can wrap things up. All right, everyone. Well, I know this has been quite the long houseplant tour, but like I said, I really wanted to get a base starting point of what all of my plants looked like at the beginning of this year so we can see just how much they have changed 1 year from now. And I highly recommend you guys go around and take some pictures of all of your plants as well to kick off this new year so that you can do the same thing at home. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If so, please be sure to click that like and/or subscribe button down below. And I am going to go run some shower water for Toby since he has been patiently awaiting that, but I look forward to seeing you guys again next time. Aloha! Look who's patiently waiting for me to turn the shower on for him. The world's biggest goofball ever. Aren't you, buddy? You ready? You ready for me to turn that water on? Let's do it. Straight up, face in the water.